So with the weather heating up, a lot of people are getting outside. They want to do those outdoor activities. So let's talk something about bicycle safety.
Sure. So the majority of injuries we see on bicycles occur between June and September. And that makes a lot of sense because school's out, there's a lot of children riding bicycles, the weather's nice, it's warm. And so you see a lot more cyclists on sidewalks, on roads than you normally do. So the first thing to address is sort of the elephant in the room, right? Most motorists don't like to hear this, but bicycles are allowed on the road. And when they're on the road, they enjoy the same protections as do other motorists. And so if you rear end someone on a bicycle, you are going to be responsible for both their property damage and their bodily injury, just like you would be if you rear-ended someone in a motor vehicle. So you need to be careful. You need to, keep your eyes out. Bicyclists, of course, have their own rules that they have to follow. They need to be traveling on the right-hand side of the road in the same direction as traffic, right? It's the opposite for a pedestrian. A pedestrian is going to walk against traffic. But there are rules of the road that apply to bicyclists as well. And then there are just general safety tips, right? Most cyclists are going to want to wear bright colors to increase their visibility. They make all sorts of different flashing lights now that go on bicycles, go on the back of your shirt, go on the back of your helmet. So, technology has really increased, for visibility for cyclists, but it's still a danger. And, motorists need to be keeping an eye out for them.
Well, we do, William, right now have a caller for you. Dawn, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead and ask your question.
I have a question. This is in regards to my nephew.
Okay.
My sister passed about 5 to 5.5 years ago and left some property in Tennessee. I am trying to do the proper protocol of having this placed in his name. He's the sole heir. My mom's fine, I'm fine. But he's been given very, very, very vague or a lot of different feedback as far as information on what he can do. He's been told that he's the sole heir, that all he's got to do is go to the courthouse, claim it, but she had no will. I mean, this was a sudden passing. She had no will put intact. Can you...
Yeah, so I mean, if he's inheriting just through the rules of intestate succession and his name is not already, on the deed for that property, I would contact a real estate lawyer. And, there may be some small fee associated with doing, getting the title or a deed switched over into his name. And it may be a situation where an estate needs to be opened up if there's no will leaving it to him. So, I would talk to a real estate lawyer or in the alternative, an estate lawyer, and just, get some clarification with regards to that issue, exactly what he needs to do to cross those T's, dot those I's, and make sure he does not have any problems going into the future. So what we do sometimes see is where someone works under the assumption that they are now the owner of this land, but they've taken none of those affirmative steps other than to make sure that the lot's cut or other things. And then when it comes time to that they need to show proof of ownership or something like that, they're really in a bind and unable to show it. There's also the issue of taxes and the taxes on the land, and those need to be paid for. And if they're not in his name, he's not going to be receiving notice of taxes due. So, if it goes for a time without the taxes being paid on the property, it can be defaulted on by the county. So, something worth talking to a real estate lawyer on, make sure you do it right.
And I do believe we have Bonnie on the line right now. Bonnie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good morning to you. If you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. I want to find out, can an apartment complex charge a tenant for unintentional damage?
I'm having a tough time understanding, Bonnie. Did you catch what she said?
She asked if an apartment complex has the right to charge a tenant for what she called unintentional damage.
So typically, the only time you're going to see that is upon move out, right? And the lease will specify, what are considered those damages. So, for example, I've had apartment complexes come after a young lady before because her heels had left an imprint on the kitchen hardwoods. A lot of leases will say look, wherever you hung things on the wall, you have to fill in those holes. So you need to go back and reference your lease. It should outline for you what are considered those incidental damages. Upon moving out, to the extent there are those incidental damages and the landlord can prove them, he has a right to deduct those from your security deposit. So it's worth looking at your lease and checking that out. But while you're a tenant there, if the water heater will go out or something along those lines, that's typically going to fall on the landlord unless it's specified in the lease that you're responsible for it. So your lease should be the controlling document that you need to refer to, and they're all different, to see exactly what those incidental damages are and the scope of what the landlord's allowed to recover.
All right, and thank you, Bonnie, for your question. If you didn't get your question answered today, remember you can always call our friends over at Timberlake and League. Maybe you'll even talk to William himself when you put in that call. And of course, William, we're so glad you're with us today.
Thanks for having me.